Om Shuklam Varadaram Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadanam Dhyayet Sarva Vigno Pashantaye Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sah Viryankaravavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay, we're going to move on to the questions. So there are three questions that are there here, which seem to be kind of interconnected. So I think I'll just read out two of them and then one of them, and we'll kind of cover the whole topic, The first one says, the Gita tells us not to be too elated or too sad, to not be too attached to people. But isn't life about forming precious relationships with people, which leads us to inevitably at times feel very sad or very happy? And isn't this what is the essence of human being? And the next question following that is, how do we give up on these worldly attachments? Actually, third also I can read. And how do we distinguish between being attached to someone and, in parenthesis, the negative connotations associated with attachment, and the purity of, quote, love, in parenthesis, and the more positive connotations attached with this latter sentiment? If we never get attached to an individual, how do we love them unconditionally? Surely these sentiments are intertwined with each other, attachment and love. So there are many points that are, mentioned here. There are many words that are mentioned here, many terms. So let's just try to first get some clarity on these different words and different terms, in what sense they are used in Bhagavad Gita. So one talks about, let's begin with attachment, attachment, love. What are these things? When you attach, so there are certain, there are words in Sanskrit language also for this. For example, the word prema, the word for love. There are 96 words in Sanskritam for love, So obviously there are so many words because there are all kinds of connotations and different degrees of meanings, different contexts, even though just when you say love, it's not just one particular meaning. It's a sentiment that involves, it's a complex sentiment. And then it's contextual also, So once a question had come up, love for a dog is not the same as a love for a child, is not the same as a love for a particular food item. It's not a same as love for the house. So we use these terms in a very broad sense, And so it's always important to keep the context in mind. In what context am I using this particular word? So here, so there, when we talk about attachment, Sangad Sanjayate Kamaha. Kamat Krodho Bijayate. So this is Gita verse. It says we try to understand what is the psychology behind it and what is the context. So in one verse it says, Sangaha is association. Okay. Association with anything. So constant association gives rise to a desire. Okay. So if it is likable, even if it's an object, so that's the whole thing about advertising. You keep seeing something, you keep listening to something, you keep, they keep talking about the qualities of any particular object in advertising. It can be something simple, a pen, which you used to write with. And then they will describe that pen from every which angle that you cannot even imagine. And the more you listen to it, the more precious it becomes. Here it talks about precious. So it becomes a precious, and then I have a desire for it. I would like to have it. I would like to have it. Because then that can be very intense. Because I almost get the feeling that I can't be without it until I possess it. So constant association like that, whether it is an object, whether it is a person, whether it is any other situation, especially if I get some joy from it, then it gives rise to a desire, and then desire gives rise to a sense of possession, because I don't want to be away from it. And so then possession, it becomes dependence also. That can lead to dependence. So anything like that, attachment, it's not the word itself, attachment is problem. That's not what the intention is here. The intention is, so this is how it is a generation. It's kind of the genesis of certain feelings and dependencies. And then, I get the object. I am satisfied for the moment. It doesn't give me contentment always. I'm satisfied for the moment. Unless the precious thing not becomes precious, then that's why they're precious commodities. Precious commodities of value, is precious because it has a certain value. In the market, the value goes up and down. It's never constant. So anything that is precious to me, even a relationship, so it is precious at one point. At one point, it's not always the same degree of how precious it is. Value I put in it. Sometimes if the relationship starts giving me a problem, then is it still precious? It loses its value like any other commodity. So what is it then? What drives my relationship with the world, with the objects of the world, with the people, from my standpoint as an individual? So these are all the kinds of things that Bhagavad Gita addresses. The whole where it leads me to ultimately. So it all depends on my thinking, how I value things, how I understand things, how dependent I get on them, and what drives me. What is it within me that drives me to seek something? Is it a sense of inadequacy and lack from which a desire is born? Or I have a desire to grow. I have a desire to mature. I have a desire to be successful, desire to accomplish things. So to seek the Lord. These also desires. Okay, so desire is something that prompts me to an action. So not that all desires are problems. So there are certain things which can become a problem to me. There are certain things which need not be a problem to me. And then there are certain things which I just do spontaneously, because I see something good in it and it doesn't bind me. So even in desires, there are binding desires, there are non-binding desires, there are desires which, it really doesn't matter which way it manifests, how it manifests. So they are very different. Same thing has to do with attachments too. Attachments to things can be a problem. But in those attachments, I can also grow as a person. That's what relationships are. Relationship is not a bad thing. Whether I'm relating to the world or relating to objects or relating to people or relating to my family, they are all means by which I interact. But a lot of these things can become for me a source of problems or a source of growth and fulfillment, But then the question here is my problems and the positive that I get it, is it really centered on these things that I'm attached to? Or is it something really that is more centered on me, on how I understand things, on how I view things, on how I relate to things? So it's really not connected to the objects. Value of a thing is not, a commodity. I'm going to call it a commodity. Whether it's an object, even if it's a person, inherently, where is the value? It's not in the object. It's in the value that we put on it. Value is something that we ascribe to something. It is precious because I say it's precious. I think it's precious. And I put a certain value on it, and that's why it changes. And it's not the same for everybody either. The same thing which is valued by one person is not valued by another person. Or at least, even if it's valued, it's not valued to the same degree, which means it doesn't really belong to the thing. It belongs to how we relate to it and how we perceive it. The same thing that is precious at one time to me becomes not precious at another time. If it becomes a source, you buy a beautiful diamond, right? This happens to people sometimes, and you want it and you've been looking at it and finally you can afford it and then you get it. And then things start going wrong. It could be just coincidental. Okay. Then you say, you know what, every time since I bought this thing, it's starting to give me problems. Then I attribute it to that thing, bad luck. It brought me bad luck. This car brought me bad luck. Previous car didn't have any accidents. This car, things keep going wrong. These kinds of things we start thinking. So now I want to get rid of it. Same thing which for years I was seeking, now I want to get rid of it. Because now I see it as a source of problem. So it's lost its value. So these are all things that this is how we relate. So he says attachments can give rise to a lot of issues, But really speaking, it's not the attachment aspect of it. It is exactly what we are, how we think, how we relate, our degree of maturity, how I view things in life. So that is an important thing to keep in mind. And that's why also it determines how sad. It says when I'm attached to things, I form relationships, leads us to inevitably at times you feel very sad or very happy. So again, that the swinging, how intense the happiness is and the sorrow is, again depends on the intensity of attachment, obviously. But then it's not really so much the attachment again here, it is dependent on my degree of maturity, how I take things in life. Sorrow and happiness as emotional states are a normal state. It's a normal experience of a human being. It's a capacity we have. Okay, we have a capacity to have some joy, to be joyful, to feel happy. We have a capacity to feel sad. At a certain circumstances, we feel a sense of happiness. Certain circumstances, we feel a sense of sorrow. When there is a loss, we feel sorrow. Generally, sorrow is connected to loss. Any sense of loss. So, but then it can be within a normal range. Human beings have to experience different emotions. That's all the process of life experience. What are our capacities? And they also help us grow. In this, we don't have, it's not a question of bad or good. Of course, one is, they are both natural. Of course, one is desirable, one is undesirable. You know, one is desirable and one is not desirable. Okay. That is where the question is. Both should be, I should have the same attitude towards both, because both are normal to a human being. They are responses. It's not based on choice. There's a loss, I feel a sense of loss. Then I feel some sadness. But then each one of them has their own capacity. One makes me stronger. Why are things in life? Some things are easy, some things are difficult. Let us take that as an example, cognitively. When I'm going to school and I learn math, and then in learning math, they give you a lot of problems I have to solve. And then in solving the problems, I find some are easy, some are difficult to solve. Then I say, I only want the easy ones. I don't want the difficult ones. Obviously, who wants difficult problems? Everybody rather have the simple problems which I can solve. In school, we all gone through that. So should I first do the easy problems, or should I first do the difficult problems? So somebody say first do the difficult ones. You get it out of the way. Then the easy one is a walkover. But in exam, you can't do that, because you'll get stuck with the first one. The exam is say, no, finish off all the good ones and then struggle with the thing. If it doesn't work, then at least you have something. So the teachers, okay, so now I will not give anybody any difficult problems, only simple problems. But that's no way to learn. Because every time I overcome a difficult thing, I become that much stronger. I learn more. The baby learns to climb a chair. It's difficult. In the beginning, it struggles. Then you just say, oh no, let me give them all low chairs. So he doesn't have to struggle to climb. You don't do that. You let him struggle. But then he climbs. One day he'll learn, figures it out, and gets on it. And then you should see the joy on his face. And he's not happy just sitting there. Now that he made it, he again wants to get down and try. Then again he struggles. Then he makes it. And again he wants to do the same. Then you ask this question, you say, why are you keep doing this? Once you get on the top, don't go down. Why you keep struggling? Because the joy is not just in getting up there. The joy is in the success. The success of getting up there is what gives him the joy. Therefore, he wants to repeat the process, Till once he masters it, then he loses interest. Then now he wants to try something more difficult, Okay. So emotions are also like that. So as we cope with them, as we cope with things in life, as we deal with things in life which are difficult, which are undesirable, it has a purpose. It has its own purpose. Of course, there are times when it becomes incapacitating. But at that time, that is only with reference to a particular mind. So like one problem, there are always problems which you never are able to solve. But then later on, as you get more and more informed, then you're able to solve it. So you have to reach a certain degree of knowledge in order to be able to solve cognitively. Emotions are also like that. Even growth, that is growth. As I become more mature in life by going through experiences, that same things which I was not able to handle before, which gave me a lot of sorrow, then those things I'm able to handle easier because of that maturity, inner maturity. You know. So the point is, even though things, it's not that undesirable things, even though they are undesirable, but there is some purpose to it. Otherwise, it won't be there in nature. Nature doesn't have things which are without purpose. So that Gita said, don't get too, don't let this be a roller coaster. See it for what it is. And let it be a process which just helps me get stronger and overcome things. But if I put too much into it, if I have a different attitude, not this kind of an attitude, if it is just centered on things, centered on objects, I want it, I don't want it, I want that happiness, like that, if the more the intensity of that kind of all attachment for the wrong reasons, then I will have a roller coaster ride. The same, roller coaster. Everybody wants to go on a roller coaster. Even if you, at the end of it, you come down and throw up, then again you want to go on the roller coaster, throw up. So there's something, why do I want to go on that? No, it's fun, it's fun. It's fun, also fun. Can't deny that. It is fun when it is not beyond a certain point. Till then, it's like that. Suppose you add all only joy, 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 joy in life, then it won't be joy anymore. It will be monotonous. Sad, 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 sad all the time. You give up. So there is a certain, up and down for human being, and it has a purpose. It helps me grow. It makes me stronger. Too much if I go, then I'll be just dizzy and throwing up all the time. Like a wrong roller coaster that you get on, which is beyond one's capacity to handle. So attachment, so it kind of points out that thing, Is that the essence? And that's that sadness, that intensity, and that's not the intensity, is not the essence of life. Essence of human life is what is relevant to everybody, That is not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for growth and the success that is there inherent in it, But in any case, so that is the thing about attachment and dependency, They're all associated with one's own attitudes and understanding, really speaking, Anabhishvangaha, intense attachment. He says in values it will come. Not having intense attachment. Intense attachment means then I can't do without. That kind of a thing. It becomes an obsession. So those are the kinds of things which he says. So, and what are those based on? Those are based on my own, they are centered on me. They are based on my insecurities, So that is the one, something to overcome. Otherwise, one can't just give up. How do we give up on worldly attachments? What is a worldly attachment? There is no such thing as worldly attachment. Everything is worldly, correct? Everything is worldly. I'm living in this world. I'm dealing with the world. There are objects in the world. There are people in the world. Attachments are there. It's all worldly. There is nothing else. There's no other kind of attachment. What about otherworldly attachment? So these worldly attachments don't give me what I want. So now I want some attachments which are outside this world. I can't get it out of this world. How am I going to get it out of some other world, which I don't even know? So now everything that I do, because this is how we get into things. So this world is only sorrow, 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 sorrow. You're meant to suffer. Somebody says like that. It's all about suffering. But there is another world now. This is the promised land. And in this promised land, whatever you don't get here, whatever you want that you don't get here, you're going to get there. Basically, that's what the promised land is. All the things you don't get here that you want, obviously, it's not the same for everybody. That's why there are different varieties of promised lands offered. It's like if you want to go on a vacation, then you have to see different brochures you see. This Hawaii looks like this, and the mountains look like that. And then you decide where to go. Whatever I fancy. So these promised lands are also like that. Somebody says you get, if you're interested in wine, etc., then there you'll get that. There's one kind of a land. If you're not interested in those kinds of things, then the other lands are also there, where there is no pain, there are no mosquitoes, all kinds of things. So then now I want something otherworldly, because here I'm not convinced I'm not going to get it. It's not like that. It has to just attachment is attachment. Whatever, I can get attached to that too, intensely now. So now everything I do is for that thing, not for what is in front of me. I don't care for the world. I don't care for the people. I don't care for anything here. Everything I'm doing is so to get there. So even there is no such thing as worldly attachments or not worldly attachments. It is just nature of attachment, what it is, what it can give, what it cannot give, and where it comes from, and what drives me to it. Their desires gives rise to attachment. Association gives rise to desires. When desires are not fulfilled, then I get frustrated. Frustration leads to anger. Frustration is I can't handle it. The more I can't handle, I want something, like a little child we see. They want something, they can't get it. Then at some point you get frustrated. At what point depends on the individual. Some have low tolerance, some have high tolerance. Then that frustration, then you start getting angry because it's not going your way. Suppose desire is fulfilled, then I'm not frustrated, I'm not angry, but then I want it again. Gives rise to more desires. So desires fulfilled gives rise to anger. Unfulfilled gives rise to anger. Desires fulfilled gives rise to greed. Really, it leads to greed. Now I want more, I want more, I want more. That also doesn't end. Both leads to dissatisfaction. It's all connected to each other. When I recognize this, then I temper down the intensity of my attachment. You know, that is what Bhagavad Gita is pointing out. You know. Then there are attachments also which are not like all, but bhakti is also a form of attachment. Love, talks about later on in the next question it comes. Parama prema swarupa bhakti. Definition of bhakti. Even love is like that. Love, there is no such one meaning for love. It's contextual. We use the word depending on the context. It takes on different connotations. My love for an object, my love for my pet, my love for my child, is a mother's love, a father's love. In different contexts, there's the same fundamental emotion that is expressed in different ways. In one of the Upanishads, there is a dialogue between Yajnavalkya and Maitreyi, his wife. Yajnavalkya was a rishi. So now they have all lived a full life, and then at some point, both of them were very wise, mature. So he wants to live a life of a sannyasi. So he has to ask his wife's permission. She has to permit it. You can't just walk away like that. So he tells her, this is what I would like to do. And then whatever, things are there, which basically means that, you give up all that you possess that is in your name, and you go live a quiet life of meditation, etc. So he said, you please, I'll give you all of this, you take, and then I would like to go, your permission to go. So then she tells him, so that all this, I'm not interested in all these things, because all of these things that you have, that we have so much, you're willing to give up for something, obviously. No one gives up anything. Really, nobody gives up anything. How to give up worldly attachments? So he says, you're willing to give up all of these things. These are all worldly attachments. And you seem to be looking for something which I don't know. What is it that you're going for? But nobody just gives up. You always give up for something else. Give up for something else which in your mind is more valuable. So if you're giving up one thing, it's an exchange, or you give up one for something else. It's called a good deal. Nobody makes a bad deal. You won't give up something for something which is less valuable. So obviously you're giving up all this, everything that you possess, for something which in your mind is more valuable. What is that? I would like to know what that is. So then he talks to her about, but before he gets into that, he starts off by saying, Atmanastu kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati. Is all these so-called possessions, they're all priyam, Priyam means these are desirable. I seek this out. Attachments are like that. Nobody is attached to anything which gives you pain. People are attached to things which give them joy, or which they believe gives them joy, or which they believe is going to give them joy, happiness. Okay. Even in any object that a person seeks, A person seeks an object because that they expect that object to give them happiness. Giving happiness means make them a happy person. And what are those objects? They vary. In fact, the same object makes one person unhappy, the same object makes another person happy. Okay, even if it's a person. This person marries somebody who thought would make him happy, and then he's happy for a while. Then he thinks that this person now makes him unhappy. And so then he doesn't want to be married. So he gets divorced. And then the same person who made him unhappy gets married to somebody else. And then they're all happy. Everybody lives happily ever after. One because he gave up, one because he got, one all they're different. So what is it? Who's seeking what? So, but in any case, everyone is seeking something that is going to make them happy. Atmanastu kamaya. That priyam. So anything is desire. I want to be a happy person. What everyone is really seeking is the happy person inside. For which we have all different theories are there and we go for those. So that is the Atma. He says everyone, that is a common thing. The happy thing inside. And that happy person, that happy being, that is the essence of a person. That is the teaching. Not this joys and sorrows is not happy essence of a person. The experiences of joys and these are all emotional states. That's not the essence. The essence of a person, he says, you inquire and discover the source of this, the happy person that you're all seeking, everybody is seeking. That drives everything. It drives my attachments. It drives my detachments. It drives whatever I do in life. He says, in fact, that is something that is your essential nature. That is what you are, unrecognized. And the discovery of that is what this whole pursuit is about. So that is the core of a being. That is the message of the Gita. So then how to get to that now? Just getting to that, does it mean just giving up? No, so okay. So now, okay, if that is true, that means I shouldn't go for worldly things, so-called worldly thing, because here worldly means other than the worldly, there's no other worldly. That is also world only. This is all one big cosmos. We see certain things, we don't see certain things. We don't see everything that is there. Maybe there are other lokas where there may be more mosquitoes or less mosquitoes or no mosquitoes, less pain, more pain, you know. So all that, but it is all still part of this same creation. You know. I don't see a world of microorganisms, but there is a world there. So, but here, what is this then? This is something that is not worldly in the sense outside of me. That's the idea. So now I give up everything that is outside of me and I have to seek myself. Right? That's what we think. Okay, this is what now religion says this. Because all this is a problem. All the problem is in the world. Now I go to something which is even otherworldly. I thought I had some chance. Now you're saying that otherworldly is also worldly. So what else is left? No, I am there. I am there. The subject got forgotten, which is the whole problem for a human being. The subject gets forgotten in this whole equation, you know, whereas the subject is the center of the whole thing, in fact. So this self, that is why self-inquiry. To inquire, what about self am I inquiring? What about the self? My ancestry? Not my ancestry. That to the ancestry.com you go. Online, you can inquire what is your ancestry. This I is something different. That is what is Atma. So, first Atma there, I do everything for myself. That is this individual self. But he says there is something else. Really, that is the essence of this self that I think I am. And that is the religious pursuit. So, like we see, this all attachments have to do with one's understanding and attitude and knowledge, wisdom. How do I get that now? It looks like in order to get that maturity, I have to again come back to the world. In fact, I can't go away from the world because it's the only place I can grow. Correct? If I have to grow emotionally, where can I grow? Suppose I don't wake up. I only live between my dream and my sleep. I don't interact. Means there's no free will. I'm dreaming, then I go to deep sleep, then I dream, then deep sleep. There is no waking state. Then will I grow as a person? Then one day I wake up after 30 years. Rip Van Winkle. Remember that story in school? He was asleep for I don't remember how many years, but he wakes up after 20 years. Sometimes it happens to people also. They go into coma. So now he woke up after being in coma for 10 years. And then you ask him, oh, do you recall anything? He may say, we don't know. No, I don't know what happened. Suppose he says, no, I had some dreams, I wake, I have some recollection, something like dream like. But when he wakes up, he's going to wake up the same person who went to sleep. You're not going to, physically he'll be older. Inside, whatever he remembers, it'll be going to be the same. Not going to be 10 years wiser. All growth takes place in interacting with the world. It's not all bad. It's not all bad. But in any case, how does one give up? So when they talk of this giving up, what do they mean? That is in terms of growth, emotional growth, cognitive and emotional maturity. Growth generally, when they use the term growth, it refers to physical growth. In medicine, when it refers to emotional growth, then they use the term maturity. That's what we usually say. So this maturity, how does this happen? Any growth, actually, growth happens. One cannot, giving up is part of growth. Giving up is not like giving up things. You give up objects. You can give up. Garbage, I give up. I give up things that I don't want, that are useless, unusable. Or I can give up things which I don't need. That also you put out. Then somebody else takes it and uses it. They are not useless. But I don't have a use for it. So I give it up. or I give things. So this is one kind of giving. Things that I need and things that I don't need, things that are useless. And here, attachments and all, how do I give up? I'm not attached to you anymore. Proclamation. Sometimes we give up by proclamation. I give up ownership. You sign off your inheritance. That is giving up. So by proclamation, by sign legally, all I give up ownership. That is giving up. Attachments, how do I give up? It's not volition. I can't declare, you're no longer my son. I can say, I'm not attached to you anymore. I can say that. That doesn't mean anything. It's still going to be my son, like it or not. If he's my son, he's going to remain my son. By saying it doesn't make anything. Legally, it means something. Otherwise, it doesn't mean anything. So inside what happens is when I grow out of something, that is when child gives up playing with a balloon, playing with certain baby toys. It gives up. That also gives up. How do they give up? It's not giving up. They grow out of the need for it. So when you grow out of the need for something, that is growth. Growth happens. One cannot make it happen. Really, cannot make it happen. It happens. It happens because of understanding, attitudes, wisdom, clarity, knowledge, those kinds of things. And you just find one day the child loses interest in that toy. And then we say he's grown out of that. Physically, you grow out of your clothes like that. Mentally, you grow out of certain kinds of sentiments, emotions. You grow out of temper tantrums. You don't grow out of temper, they just modify. Even adults have temper tantrums. They're just different type. But then these kinds of growth, it just happens, All growth happens like that, in fact. Even physical growth happens. You get 1 year older, you find yourself 1 year older. You don't get 1 year older on your birthday. This birthday is a very big thing. And then you celebrate. And then the person sometimes you are happy. Young people are happy on their birthday. Older they get, then they're not as happy. Then if you ask them, how come you're not happy? No, I'm a year older. But yesterday you were happy. You looked happy yesterday. Today you look unhappy. No, today is my birthday. I'm a year older. What were you yesterday? 1 year younger? You didn't become 1 year old overnight. That's true. Though you were 1 year younger only 1 year back. In between, what happened? No. I just found myself 1 year older after a year. It happens. It comes upon you. By learning, by attitudes, by values, by the way we relate and all, those are the processes that help one shed some of the intensity, our needs, our dependencies, our insecurities. With all that, the degree, the kind of, the quality, the nature of attachment changes. My relationship to things, to people, to objects changes. And that process of growth is what is talked about here. when they talk about giving up these attachments, it's not something that one can just do like that. But it happens as a process of growth. So, what else was there? If we never get attached, etc., how do we love them unconditionally? This unconditional love, conditional love, this is all again an expression of love that is born of my fullness, that is not centered on any need of mine, is what we can consider unconditional, if you want to use that word. The unconditional doesn't mean that I don't have a condition for the other person. Generally we think conditional love means I love you if you do this, if you don't do this, all those kinds of stuff. Unconditional means I don't have any condition. Means I love you, but I don't want anything back from you. But then inside, I'm still driven by it because of my own needs. I may be afraid to demand anything. So I don't demand anything. But then here, but the condition still it is for me to be happier. I feel happier with that, what I'm seeking, even though I don't want anything back from it. At least I want the fact that I want to be happy. If I'm miserable, then I won't go for it. That was the original thing Yajnavalkya said. But here, when it is born of my fullness, in the sense, it is not driven by my need. With it or without it, it's not going to make me happier. It's not going to make me sad. But it's an expression of my fullness. That kind of relationship where there is compassion, there is caring, there is giving, all those things are possible because it's born of inner, but I don't need it to make me any better on a personal level. So the condition there is with respect to oneself, not with respect to the other person. Other person gives or doesn't give, it really doesn't matter. It's not going to make me feel any better or worse. So that is a different thing. That is an expression of something that is born of a person's mind, which is content in itself, not dependent on something else for its contentment, whether or not I am seeking it. So that kind of a thing. So I think that's enough for now. But this is what is going to be addressed in this way. As you see, the many verses come connected to this particular topic in Bhagavad Gita. So I'll conclude with these questions. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.